is palpable jubilation in the air following the agreement reached between Labour and the federal government on consequential adjustments on the minimum wage. Hello and welcome to Standpoint. I'm Ibrahim Shita. And then, after long hours of back-breaking meetings of 3 consecutive days, both government and Labour agreed that civil servants on grade level 7 will have their salaries adjusted by 23.2%, grade level 8 by 20%, grade level 9 by 19%, grade levels 10 to 14 by 16%, grade levels 15 to 17 by 14%. One body that pulled out of these negotiations before this agreement was brokered is the United Labour Congress, ULC, and the president of the ULC, Comrade Joe Ajaero, joins me in the studio to talk more on this. Welcome to Standpoint.
Thank you very much.
Although you were not part of the final negotiations, do you think this bargain is really a fantastic deal?
Well, I think something has been added to the workers' pay, but in relative terms, it's like nothing, Why? What do I mean? If you put it side by side, 18,000 naira minimum wage that was signed over 5 years ago, you discover that the 30,000 now will bring you to either 13,000 or 12,000 in terms of inflation, in terms of the value of the currency and all that, And then the mode at which it was approached, was not tidy for those of us in the United Labour Congress of Nigeria, because an increase of from 18,000 to 30,000 is about 66.7% increase. And when the 2 other labor centers decided to demand, and they demanded 29% increase, we felt that was a wrong way of negotiating. It wasn't across board. So even if they had, even if they were given 29% as they demanded, you discover that it does not translate to the increase from 18,000 to 30,000. So that was a part of the argument.
Is that why? Because during the negotiations between the organized labor, excluding yours, you described that meeting as, in your own words, making a mockery of genuine struggle by Nigerian workers.
Oh,
why exactly?
Clearly, you see, when they came with the threat for a strike,
right,
and then we realized that they had already given notice of strike, and they were not going with the engine. The organizations I represent seem to be the engine in the labor movement. And then we discovered that if they go on industrial action, they will not be taken serious because of the force, that they wanted to apply.
But that was actually misconstrued. They never said they were going on industrial action. They only
well,
say
they had already given directives to their state councils to start to proceed on an action that same 16th. In fact, most states, had commenced that morning before they came out, to announce, that they never gave a strike notice. So in the midst of that conflict, you discover that the clarification we made was necessary, because you can't say you want to go on action, you have not mobilized, and your leadership have not even come up to give clear directive. So it was shrouded in secrecy. So the ULC came out openly to say, if that's the way you want to go on strike, it's not going to work. It's going to be dead on arrival. So suddenly that pushed them out to say, we didn't say we are going on strike.
So if you're saying, are you saying that the bargain of 23.2% increase for grade level 7, 20% for 8, and and the like, are not really fair enough, considering the current situation in the country? The government is saying that we don't have much to pay. We don't have much to. When we increase it beyond that, that will be backbreaking.
I think we should look at it. Do we look at it from the point of view that government doesn't have money to pay, or do we look at it from the point of view that what they pay is not enough, to even transport the worker, from house to office, because this 30,000 that people were talking of translates to 1,000 naira a day, 1,000 naira a day for a family of 6, and then you add other expenditure. Now that's a month of 30 days.
Right.
In a month that you have 31 days, it's about 900. It's not up to 1,000. And now, do we follow that, or to say I don't even have money to pay you? So I think that's the challenge we have. This is still poverty wage. 30,000 naira minimum wage is still poverty wage.
It's not enough to be called
living
wage.
No, it's not a living wage. No. Because the whole essence of minimum wage, and I think the government should come up and tell us, clearly one is to drive people out of poverty, and then to make sure you cover some social inequality. So if you look at that, this 30,000, has it achieved that aim? The answer is no. So I think it's not all about we don't have money.
No, they have not actually started paying it. When you say has it achieved,
yeah, but clearly,
what would you have suggested? Because the fight actually started from about 56,000 naira down to 30,000 naira before they had to sit down and have this conversation and arrive at these particular, this different consequential adjustments. What exactly would you have suggested that they pay in the first place?
Well, we started together. My organization, ULC, was among the 16-member panel. When they decided not to sign, we took action jointly, NLC, ULC, and TUC, until it was signed as 30,000. Now the implementation. Now they said 30,000 was meant for the least paid worker.
Right.
And in the public service, the least paid worker is the worker on level 1, step 1. And I've said this elsewhere, that cadre has ceased to exist in the public sector. There's nobody now on level 1, step 1. Even if you are entering the public service with primary 6, at most you will start from, at least you will start from level 3, step something. So it's like that entire cadre doesn't exist. And now if there was increase of 66%, and then you now start adjusting, with the highest at 25, and the lowest at maybe whatever percentage, you will discover that it lost its team. Why? Even if it's not possible for us to do 66% across board,
right,
we should have come with something better. Now, when Labour now goes to ask for 29%, they have edited themselves off. They have edited almost 37% or more off, and started, the ambition was low. And then whatever they got to these days, I want them to translate it into Naira and Kobo. You see that some might be 7,000, 10,000 and all that. So is that the level of devaluation? Is that the level of...
So why did you remain on the sidelines, watching them from the sidelines, and then, saying things to show that you're not in solidarity with their movement?
Well, this is the minimum wage has just started. And we have labor in some sectors. Most of the unions that I represent are in the private sector. And what you have seen now is the consequential adjustment in the federal civil service.
Right.
Now, I'm not particularly going to participate in that. But in the unions that we cover, with the new minimum wage, we will now go and make demands. Because as of today, no union...
Make demands from who?
From our employers. From our employers. We have different employers. Those of us from electricity sector, some with oil and gas, right, some others from aviation, right, and whatever. So based on the new minimum wage, even as of today, nobody from that sector collects 30,000 minimum wage, even before the introduction of 30,000. So we make fresh demands and factor in all these issues that I'm raising now. So it's not like we are going to force them. And in fact, the table they brought now is for federal civil service. In the states, you see the battle of all battles in the states, for the adoption of this level or not. And that is why as at today, even it's still in Zamfara, right, they were still paying them 7,500. And this Lagos state was not paying 18,000, even when minimum wage was 18,000.
So you're not very optimistic that with this newly agreed upon, the states might still not...
No, the states will not adopt it. They will go back to start negotiating with the state workers. And that's why they will...
When you say negotiating, is it, negotiating downward again, or looking at, raising it beyond...
From the examples I've given you already, you can see that some have negotiated downwards. If Lagos was not paying 18,000, if Zamfara was not paying 18,000, you see that they negotiated downwards, which is a violation of the minimum wage law, that you cannot pay less than this. So you still see workers who collaborate with their governors, to pay something less, under the pretense of we don't have the ability to pay. And that has affected the workforce so badly.
Well, we feel this probably might be, that case, because every state has its own, peculiar economic conditions. Perhaps the minimum wage should be decided at state level, or what do you think, rather than the national level decision that they made?
No. See, minimum wages and whatever, the industrial relation matters are still in the exclusive list. States cannot, decide to, adjudicate on their wages, because the worker is a worker. If a worker is working based on first degree, in Sokoto, in Kaduna, wherever. He's a worker. So you must get that protection. If you don't do it, if you don't have a minimum wage law enacted, you know, and it's just the flaw. The minimum wage this time around.
If I want to get your argument, you know, correctly, you're saying states are already negotiating downward. Are you saying downward beyond the 30, you know, the benchmark 30,000?
I say there has been criminal conspiracy between labor leaders in some states. Are you hearing me? And their governors to pay less than what the law provided. Get this clear. Minimum wage law is clear that anybody that pays less than this amount has committed an offense. The penalty is known. But in some states, they are paying less. And the labor leaders in such states are keeping quiet. And workers are being cheated. It's a clear point.
So who fights on their behalf?
Well,
you're talking about these. Looks like they're just there and no one is, there is no solace for them any longer. So where do they go to? To whom do they cry?
Well, in labor relations here, you know, you can't leave your sector to go and defend another person in another sector. So if the people in those sectors...
But you're raising the alarm.
Yeah, that's the highest I could do. I can't go to defend the workers, the teachers, and the civil servants. If I'm not their general secretary, I'm not their president. But I can raise all these things as a concerned labor leader, you know, for them to know what they're supposed to do. Even if they are not going on strike, such states could be taken to industrial courts to prove that they have paid below what the law stipulates. So, and the minimum wage is just a flaw. Now, they are expected to go back to improve on it, you know, just to get a table from the floor. But you now see people, you know, going down the floor, which I'm saying is illegal.
We'll definitely explore these vis-a-vis some other economic indices with the workers. I've been speaking with the president ULC, Comrade Joe Ajaero. We'll take a break and be back. Welcome back. You're watching Standpoint, and I'll be speaking with the President, United Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero. Thank you so much for being on the program. Now, let's explore these further, you know, the consequential adjustments of these new minimum wage. Now, increase in tax is another, tax and tariff is another issue here. The NLC is already appealing to the government, you know, not to increase electricity tariff, prices of petroleum product, tax on soft drinks. And then you also heard recently the return of toll, you know, erecting toll roads or toll gates rather on the roads rather. So is government, does it look like government is giving or collecting what is given to the people with the right hand and collecting it back with the left hand?
Well, I think the introduction of all these tax shows that something is not adding up. You know, let's take the toll, for instance. During around 2004, during Obasanjo's era, when they abolished the toll, it was when they increased pump price of petroleum products.
Right.
And they actually say they have factored it into the pump price of petroleum products. Therefore, there was no need, you know, for another tax, you know, through the toll gates. And they demolished it. Now, one starts to ask, when you reintroduce it, are you going to reduce the prices of petroleum products? So, because if they reintroduce it again, you know, it will be a double taxation on the same issue. Now, that of VAT, you know, like I said earlier, you know, if you add VAT to 7.5%, even the minimum wage today, in real terms, you know, the workers will lose about 15% on that tax alone. And then the tariff. But you see, there's something I needed to point out in this issue of electricity tariff and others. If you have gone to the market in the name of privatization, you know, then it becomes difficult for you to determine a tariff because it is determined by the market forces. Now, if those people in the electricity sector are saying we won't make profit unless we charge this amount, now what are you going to do as a government? Now, you'll be forced either to give them subvention, you know, or to take up such a product again to buy back. So in these instances, it appears the economy is not faring well, you know. So I think we have to balance it up. You know.
I think, okay, well, I think, and then we heard the government saying that we are putting in place measures to cut down or to cut cost of governance. So will these, if this is done eventually, do you think this will definitely trickle down to the common masses?
We need to know what they are doing to cut down cost of governance. Because if somebody is earning 14 million a month and he is a legislator, and you tell me that you are cutting down cost of governance, and he's still earning it. If a particular office is occupied by 6 political appointees, SA this, SA that, and you have not done anything, and you tell me you are cutting down on governance. In fact, let's even take the issue of award of contracts and execution of contracts and duplication of functions. In the Federal Ministry of Works, you can have over 200 engineers. But almost all the roads being constructed in Nigeria are done by contractors. Now, before the 1970s, we have the Public Works Department that was working very well. And those engineers are the people that are doing the work. You have sanitary inspectors, you have road engineers, they are there working because they earn their salaries for this job. So why will you still award contract for such jobs? Whether in the rail, whether in the aviation or whatever.
Is it not a bold step that the government has already taken, saying that, okay, we are reducing the number of people who will be traveling, government officials will be traveling, using economic class. Those who are using business class will be using economic class, and so on and so forth. Isn't that a bold step?
Did they tell us?
A step to telling us that definitely the government means
you see, you don't take it in piecemeal, and you don't take the list if you want to take the bull by the horn. How much are we going to save from those that are traveling? But I've mentioned the area. If government
no extra codes, and you know how much that.
If government stops the award of contracts now, maybe road construction, whatever, because these people still use engineers in the ministries and parastatals to do the job. If they do that, I'll bet you the amount of money that will be available for development. If government reduces all these political appointees here and there, for instance, you have SA information, chief press secretary, and you have over 500 people in the Ministry of Information and whatever, and they are earning their salary as information officers, and then you are going to appoint some party men, as political aides. If we reduce all these issues, all these areas, the cost of governance will be reduced. Not just touching the people that are traveling and ESTA code. At what percent are you cutting the ESTA code? Are you going to reduce their air ticket? Are you going to reduce their hotel accommodation? Those ones are not dependent on you. If I travel to the US, if hotel accommodation is $1,100, it's $100. If feeding is $5, it's $5.
But they won't have to stay beyond the limited time that
That's what I'm saying. Have they been staying beyond before?
Okay, let us bring you back to the issue of this new minimum wage because of the pessimism you've already shared. Now, when the workers now see that, okay, it has been implemented, we are receiving it, the state governors are complying, state governments rather are complying, and they realize that it is not sufficient, not enough to take home. Are we looking at another form of agitation coming in the future?
No, it may not be. It may not be
very soon. That's something.
It may not be immediately, but the workers, even before receiving it, know that it is not going to lead them anywhere. Clearly, that is one. Two, this money is not even in the pocket already. There is another phase of the battle for the implementation. What you have seen is a table adjusted at the federal. The federal government can try. I'm not sure they control more than 20% or 30% of the workforce in the country. The state governments, the local governments. The federal government can try to pay this table they've just brought out. We're entering another phase, in terms of local government, states, in the implementation of this one that we said is not enough. And now, if it continues this way, and they struggle with it, it is equally going to have an effect on productivity, clearly. So if it is possible to make sure that there's no friction attached to the implementation, I would suggest that we start the implementation and the workers see how far it can carry them. But if we put them through another process, another hustle of striking, picketing, fighting for this meager money to be paid, then there's going to be a big problem.
So if Lagos State, for instance, and Ekiti State saying, okay, we will definitely comply with the new the new adjustment, and other states are now saying, this is why we can't do it. We are not viable. We don't have the money. What would you suggest in that regard?
Well, the issue of when Lagos State has said we are going to pay, I had Ekiti say they are going to pay. Good news, and they're going to pay. But they didn't say they will adopt the federal table. That's the point I'm making now. If they say they are going to adopt the federal table.
But they don't have any other option than to adopt. They can only pay higher. They can't pay less.
They can adopt they can adjust. They can adjust the federal table.
Ratify it upward, not downward.
Or fine, if
That's
they
the
adopt,
point I'm making.
if they adopt it and top something, that would be good. Because even in the last minimum wage, Edo State government was paying 25,000 naira minimum wage.
So what would your advice be for the state that are saying we don't have the
Well, the advice for the state that are saying we don't have, is that there is going to open another line of struggle. You know, because it's not all about saying we don't have. History have proved that the ones that are saying we don't have, they don't have less revenue than the ones that are saying they have. Now I want any of them to tell me that they have less revenue than Ekiti. So it depends on the political will and priority. Some of those states are awarding contracts, frivolous contracts, you know, and some others have priority in terms of human development, payment of salaries and wages.
Well, we're definitely costing them. But then this new minimum wage thing was actually, you know, signed let's say 182 days, you know, backward. And then we already submitted the 2020 budget. The new adjustment is not captured in it. How sincere do you see this new bargain, just in a nutshell?
No, I will be surprised if they didn't capture the new adjustment, because that means they were not having in mind that there was going to be adjustment. However, you know, I know that they can work on supplementary budget to capture it, you know, when it eventually is ratified. So that's I'm not losing sleep over that.
Well, we are equally concerned about the relationship between or among the labor union. You were on the sidelines when these final negotiations was actually made, and then going ahead to striking a deal. How would you describe your relationship currently, and will this definitely affect, you know, you in the future?
Well, I think the labor unions were unanimous, you know, in the struggle for demand for a minimum wage. In fact, we started from living wage, 90-something, 50-something, you know, before we go to 30. And unknown to us, we didn't know that, you know, this 30,000, you know, would have dragged till today. And what I didn't notice in the agreement they signed is that whether there is going to be arrears, you know, from April when it was signed into law to date. But I will tell you that we are unanimous, you know, in terms of asking for a living wage, a minimum wage. But the approach to it differs. You know, why people who ask for 29% in a minimum wage that attracted 66.7, you know, from my own side, we would ask for that 66% across board and see whether we can get something higher.
Yeah, you were unanimous in your words, but I'm talking about now and what is likely going to, you know, the shape is likely going to take in the future, in a nutshell.
Well, the shape is going to take is that when there are things that affect all of us, we still come together to fight it. You know, it's not like we have parted ways, never to meet again. The worker issues are issues that of much concern to all of us, but the approaches differ. Right. You know, some people may think you do it this way. Some may think you go into prayers. Some think you beg. Some others think you fight. So that is the only difference we are noticing in our approach to labor issues.
And here is a convenient place for us to, you know, to leave it. President, United Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero, thank you so much for coming on Standpoint.
God bless you.
And that's our package on Standpoint. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Enjoy your weekend. Bye now.